So can you tell us a bit about the history of HB, HumbleBurger? How did it get started? And what was your vision surrounding the burgers?
Yeah. Well, let's take it all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
HumbleBurger started in 2014, which was, about a year after Hannah and I had moved back to Moscow. We used to live out in the Portland area. We were out there for about 4 years, and I was a writer and producer for the ABC news station in Portland.
Really? Okay. I did not know that.
I was a former journalist for a little while.
Wow. That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was pretty fun, but it was also Hannah and I had a couple of small children.
Hmm.
News work, if you talk to people in the industry, is not super conducive to young families, married life in general.
Yeah.
So we talked about, trying to do something that we felt was a little bit more our speed.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I was interested in doing was starting some sort of cafe or restaurant. So we started
Okay.
looking into that when we lived in Oregon. Never materialized in Oregon. So after we moved back to Moscow, I thought maybe doing a food cart of some kind in Moscow would be cool because it was all the rage in Portland and there really
Right.
weren't
Right.
any in Moscow when we moved
Hmm.
back. And it seemed like it might be a good fit. So we started looking into that, but I quickly realized that there was a lot more overhead with a food cart than I
Really
had at first realized. Because it's
interesting.
still, even though it's not a full-on restaurant, it's still going to take you, 25 grand or
Right.
more to get all the equipment together,
Yeah.
you know, get the cart itself, all the overhead that goes with that.
Okay.
Um, so, the whole young married man, no
Yes.
money thing came into play again with that, right? I
Yeah.
was just,
Experiencing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can't drop $30,000 on that. So
Sounds like a nice payday.
we decided to look into the farmers market
Okay.
because Moscow Farmers Market, one of the most amazing things I think about Moscow,
Hmm.
just the downtown community. I have been to farmers markets in California, which is where I'm from, been to a bunch all over the Portland area, and I
Yeah.
still think the farmers market is hands down the best one I've ever been to.
Wow. Okay. That's high
But
praise.
I mean, it seemed like something that would serve as a good testing ground
Hmm.
to, flesh out this idea that we had for a food cart by doing it at the farmers market as a booth.
Right.
And
Right.
the overhead cost is very, very low.
Hmm.
You pay a couple $100s to be a seasoned vendor where you can be there every Saturday from May through October, and then you have to buy your own equipment, but that's basically it.
Right.
So rather than spend $25,000, $30,000, you can do it for, maybe $2,000.
Right, right. And so just kind of a follow-up question on more of the
Yeah.
farmers market. When you came out here to do that, was that is it sustainable to like just have the farmers market, or did you have to have like a side hustle to be able to
I was
continue building?
I was still working full time. I got hired
Okay.
away from the news job by MZ.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Nice.
So MZ flew me out here, interviewed me, and then offered me a job
Wow.
right before the end of 2012.
Okay.
But I was on top of being a news TV journalist.
Mhm.
I was also teaching part time.
Okay.
I told them that I needed to finish out the term,
Mm.
uh, so I wasn't able to move out until the beginning of 2013.
Okay.
So that's what brought us back out. So I was doing MZ full time as well as then
Wow.
doing
Okay.
farm yeah. So we were, originally it was Hannah, my wife, and then our friend Chris Aberly. Have you met Chris?
I don't think so. The name sounds familiar, but just like everything else in Moscow, you can
Yeah,
hear about it and not meet them. So
yeah. It was the three of us. Chris and I have known each other. We went to school together for 4 years. Known each other for a really long time.
okay.
So when we first started talking about doing a food thing, I was considering people to partner up with because I knew I didn't want to just do it by myself.
Yeah.
And Chris was the guy. I was like, I can work with Chris. This will be great because
Yeah. Yeah.
he and I get along really well, but we also think about things very differently.
Okay.
And we have, I think, a very healthy antagonistic kind of relationship where we like argue about stuff, but it kind of
Yeah.
helps
Yeah.
figure things out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Hannah, Chris, and I started out, and Chris and I were working. We were both working for MZ at the time, and then Saturdays we just did the market thing,
Okay.
basically all day Saturday.
So actually, to kind of go along with that, what
Yeah,
kind of person would you like? I find that just talking with entrepreneurs in town, there's if they're working together, there's the dreamer and the
yeah,
visionary, and then there's the guy who like crunches the numbers and like how is this practical?
yeah.
Which do you find yourself tending toward?
I mean, I definitely tend towards the dreamer side of
Okay.
thing. Um, but the reason I think our dynamic between Hannah and Chris and I worked is because we all brought something very different to the
Hmm.
table, but it ended up being very complementary. And
Yeah.
I can't really take any credit for that. It was just sort of the three of us combined ended up working together really well, and it was
Yeah.
very easy. Um, and we're all, I think, a mix of being kind of on the dreamer side of things, but
Okay.
also we have practical elements as well. Like I'm not a perfectionist. I'm just kind of a person who, if there's a thing that I want to see happen, I will try and figure out a way to make it happen, even if it's maybe not great
Right.
the
Right.
first time
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in doing things in order to get better at them.
Okay. Yeah. Same.
Um,
Here. Here.
and Chris is much more, he wants to have like a plan and make sure that we, know how to succeed before we even get started.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's geared a lot more that way. And then Hannah is, somebody who is just going to pour a lot of heart and soul into whatever she does. And she's also more of a perfectionist than I am, but she's also, more like trying to be perfect with what she's actually doing, I think.
Right.
Whereas, I tend to just sort of start flailing around and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we ended up with a
Okay.
really good mix between the three of us, and we just got together, kind of conceptualized what we wanted to do. And I know that's part of your questions.
Yeah.
You had one of those things from the website
Yeah. Yeah.
about what we were trying to do, and
Mm.
I mean that's basically it. I'm from California originally. California is really big on hamburger culture.
Mhm.
I worked at In-N-Out Burger when I was in high school. I love those old style, really straightforward burger places that just kind of focus on doing a couple of things that are
Mm.
really straightforward, but
Yeah.
do well as you can.
Those are
So I
good
knew
places.
that's the concept that we wanted to go for.
Mhm.
And then we just kind of, Hannah and Chris and I just kind of talked about what that would actually look like. So putting the burger together with ingredients, because you have to actually jury your product for farmers market before they'll allow you to sell it.
Okay. Gotcha. Hmm.
So that was part of the process, was we had to apply to farmers market while we were coming up with the actual burger concept,
Hmm.
and start figuring out how to make the burgers so that we could take them to the farmers market jury
Okay.
and show them this is what we're actually going to do.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, so that's what we did spring of 2014, was just kind of figure it out,
Hmm.
dial all that stuff in. Chris and I had a couple things that we were really keen on as far as the burger went, which was we wanted to have a brioche bun,
Mhm.
which was just, we wanted to do a pretty high level burger, even though we were trying to keep it on the cheaper side of things.
Right.
We
Right.
make it family friendly because we were all people with families.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's part of it, is, trying to make food that we would want to go out and buy and
Mhm.
eat. So we knew we wanted to do a brioche bun, a fresh, never frozen beef patty without any hormones or antibiotics. So we were
Right. Right.
basically, from the get-go, we were dealing with the co-op because they're kind of the only game in town if you want stuff ground fresh all the
Yeah.
time.
So actually to kind of jump in on that, so with those very specific patties or burgers, how is that different, say, from fast food chain or even other burger places? Just for the sake of me and the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, from a more technical standpoint, what we
Mhm.
do with the beef, because a lot of places, even Wendy's uses fresh, never frozen beef.
Right.
You know, they've got their special square patties that they use.
Yes, I do enjoy those. Those are good.
Yeah, I do too, actually. But one of the things that we looked into was how we wanted to cook the burger itself.
Mhm.
Because, you know, a lot of people just throw a patty on a flat top. People put a patty on, you know, like a char grill. There are a lot of different ways to cook it. But one of the things that Chris and I had talked about was this old diner technique that was really big in the Midwest a while ago, and has since HumbleBurger started, has now become like a huge deal. But at the time, it wasn't like a huge thing. But it's the
Yeah.
smash patty.
Yes. Yes.
Which is now, I mean, you can't, you know, go anywhere without running into somebody who's making a smash patty burger.
Yeah.
So that's what we wanted to do, just
Okay.
because we really liked the combination of textures and flavors that you can get with a smash patty. And it's, you know, something too that's really easy to do, and, you know, do it quickly.
Right. Right.
So we came up with this idea of using an ice cream scoop. So
Okay.
you do this with the metal ice cream scoops, scooping a ball of beef onto the grill. We have a flat top that we use. It's a chrome top grill. And, you know, we just decided that that would be the easiest way for us to do stuff, because at farmer's market, you're very limited on space, also very limited on prep. So
Right.
we didn't have to just hand roll like a million little balls of beef. Just do that as we went.
Right.
So all that kind of came together in a way that actually worked pretty well with the limitations of the farmer's market booth,
Right.
but also fit in with what we actually wanted the burger to be. So
Excellent.
it was just pretty serendipitous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then early on, we made the decision that we wanted to do something that seemed true to the Northwest. So growing up in California, you know, almost every hamburger you buy has lettuce and tomato on it.
Yes.
In the Northwest, the season for tomatoes specifically is very, very short.
Really? Okay.
And the rest of the year, you end up getting tomatoes that might end up being a little bit subpar from a flavor and texture standpoint. So we decided we wanted to do stuff that would be available year-round where we live. And that's what led us to just doing sweet pickles. We make ourselves in-house. Back in the day, we actually had our current neighbors, Lodgepole, used to make our pickles for us at farmers.
Oh, really? Okay. Gotcha.
And then we just do a thin layer of onions, and then we have the traditional Northwest fry sauce.
Yes. Yes, it's very good fry sauce. And now you sell them as, like, you can buy a jar of fry sauce at HumbleBurger, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the thing. It really, when we first started out, we didn't actually have a fry sauce. We were still kind of messing around with the recipe. So we just put out ketchup and mustard, which is fine, but also, you know, anybody can put out ketchup and mustard.
Right,
so it took us a little bit, but we got our HumbleBurger fry sauce going, and I feel like that was the thing that really kind of elevated the burger to a different level.
Yeah, definitely adds its unique flavor to it, and I mean, it's already a great patty. I've talked multiple times with George and Ruth about just ranking the burger places in town, because I grew up in the Midwest, and that's also a big, big burger town. And actually, kind of as a side note, it may not make it into the podcast, but Ruth and I, on our honeymoon, we visited family down in Kansas City and in Minnesota, because they didn't get to make it out to the wedding. So in Kansas City, we just made a ton of food stops, because there are like dozens of burger places there that I think we went to 3 or 4 different burger places in the 3 days that we were there. So doing the math on that, there's only a few meals to go around. But so coming up here, I hold that HumbleBurger is the best burger place in town, even if you factor in fast food and all the downtown stuff, because it's just, the patty's one of a kind, it feels like, and then the fry sauce added onto it is just phenomenal.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so Vision Burgers, farmers market, and then how long were you at the farmers market, and then how long did it take you to get into a building?
So again, all of this, like, whenever I go back through the history of the first couple of years of HumbleBurger. It's
Mhm.
kind of insane how everything fell together. We
Yeah.
didn't really have a master plan or anything. We just sort of, you know, true to my nature, just started doing a thing.
Right. Right.
Just kind of figured it out as we went, but everything sort of just lined up in order for us to be able to do what we're currently doing.
Hmm.
So we did that first farmers market season, which was 2014, and it went kind of nuts on us. We we almost failed by succeeding too hard early
Really.
on. Well, because we had no idea what we were doing or what to expect from a
Mhm.
demand standpoint.
Right. Right.
So we just kind of showed up, and I hadn't really thought through how we were going to do ordering,
Mhm.
what the tickets were going to look like for writing
Right.
down order, any
Mhm.
any of those sorts of things. There's a ton of stuff like that that you don't really think about
Yeah. Yeah.
until you have to do it. So one of the first weeks that we were out there, we used sticky notes, like we had post-it notes that we were writing orders on. And it was May in downtown Moscow, so the weather
Wow.
was
Okay.
not actually great. And
Interesting.
the wind kicked up and started blowing all of our post-it notes around.
Oh, gotcha. Wow.
And it was terrible. We had no idea what we were supposed to be cooking.
Yeah.
All the orders had gotten jumbled up. Some of them were lost. I mean, it was
Oh.
just a total nightmare. So, we, on top of that, we had a ton of people showed up the first week that we were at farmers market.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, maybe we'll sell like 30 or 40 burgers over the
Right.
course of the market. And we had like over 100 people showed up immediately.
Wow.
Kind of overwhelmed the booth.
So how did that was the very first weekend
Yes.
that you guys were at farmers market. How did the word spread like that, or was that just because everyone's out at farmers market?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just, partly we had friends who were kind of curious to see what we were up to.
Right.
And then, just being at the market. And we also lucked out because the market very kindly put us close to the corner of 3rd and Main Street.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is still the booth location to this day, but is also one of the locations where, everybody who's coming to market basically walks by you.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of lucked out with that as well. But I mean, it was kind of insane. We had, every week that first season, we had a line. People were waiting like an hour plus to get burgers.
Yeah.
So by the end of that season, that 6-month season, we had a meeting, Chris and Hannah and I did in September of that year, where we just kind of sat down and talked about whether or not we wanted to make this an actual thing.
Yeah.
And we obviously decided that we would.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically started at the end of that farmers market season looking at spaces to put a restaurant in.
Okay.
Working on a business plan, coming up with a budget to build out a space and all that stuff. So, I mean, it was really from filing paperwork with the Secretary of State for HumbleBurger to us deciding to become a full-time restaurant was like 8 months, something like that. And that was just based off of the success of the farmers market booth. So, we obviously didn't die after the first
right.
catastrophe. I did go back to my house after that, and we drank a bottle or two of champagne, and I just like laid on our floor for an hour or so, just kind of recovering.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a very intense weekend if you were only expecting maybe half that success.
Exactly. And then we had to go back to work on Monday for our day job. So,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So when did you said 8 months from the time that you started at farmers market to when you opened, or is that 8 months to when you
when we
approached?
made the decision that we were actually going to build a restaurant.
Gotcha.
Because then we spent, let me think about this. We spent probably 4 or 5 months, I think, just kind of looking around, talking to landlords and checking out different available spaces around town. And then, again, the serendipities, but our buddy Austin Storm, Storm seller owner, also at the time owned the building that we are now in.
Oh, really? Okay.
He had purchased the building, I think maybe 2-3 years before that point, and he'd just been working on, demoing stuff and then rebuilding. basically they like stripped it down to a shell and then started kind of building it back up
Oh,
again.
wow. Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they did a really good job preserving a lot of the stuff with that building. It's a very cool old building that
Hmm.
your wife may have told you this, she may not have, but it used to be part of the mail order cult Psychiana.
I've heard rumors about that. I don't think
Yeah.
Ruth has. Maybe she's just nervous that if I find out, I'll need to like just be there like
Yeah.
every shift. No.
Yeah, it's just this old building, and down in the basement there are these wrought iron signs that say international headquarters that I assume are from the Psychiana days, because I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody else would be talking about
Wow.
international headquarters.
And so Austin left that there, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
yeah, he left it down in the basement. I
Wow.
think at one point he had plans to use it for something.
Hmm.
But yeah, so he had started talking to different people about moving into the building before us. They all fell through.
Okay.
So, we're good friends. So he knew that we were looking around for a
Right.
space
Right.
for HumbleBurger. So he approached us about taking part of that building. And he basically ended up talking to us and Lodgepole simultaneously,
Okay.
because we were both looking to start restaurants at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so he ended up getting his tenants in there roughly at the same time. We were all kind of building out and doing all that stuff. And we signed lease papers, I think, like maybe March of 2015.
Okay.
So a little over a year after we had started on the journey of going to farmers market.
Right. Right. Wow.
We signed lease papers, and then we spent like 6 months, I guess, working on the building itself.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was still working at MZ.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving MZ in June for the last couple months of the building project,
Okay.
because I was just kind of overseeing everything and
Yeah.
getting stuff ready
Right. Right.
for those last couple months. So yeah, so then we opened up September of 2015.
Okay. Nice.
Almost at the end of our second season at Farmers Market.
Okay.
So we were also at the market still.
Okay. Nice. And you've been at the market every year since?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we took our second year, I guess, we took most of the market season off. We were still there occasionally, but that's the only one that we've done. All the other ones we've been there, 20 plus weekends out of the season.
Right. Right. Man, that's amazing. And so when you opened up in September, the actual store location, what was that atmosphere like? Like how many employees did you have? What were you going for, trying to establish the vibe around HumbleBurger?
Yeah, that was one of the, I think, trickier elements to what we did with HumbleBurger, was coming up with a concept for an actual restaurant.
Yeah.
And we were basically trying to walk a really fine line between doing something that was going to be family friendly, easy to clean, because we were basically doing everything.
Right.
And then also we had almost no money. I mean, we kickstarted part of our opening budget.
Wow.
We kickstarted almost $15,000 to buy the ventilation hood that's in HumbleBurger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because between Chris Hand and I, we just didn't have all the money that you need.
Yeah.
To open a restaurant. And looking back at it, we had a really idealistic approach to things, where we just decided we didn't want to borrow any money from the banks.
Okay.
We were going to try and self-fund as much as possible.
Yeah.
Which I still think is, an admirable thing, but I also think that it made our lives much more difficult for probably the first 2 years that we were a business, by opening on such a shoestring budget. So if we had actually had a little bit of money in the bank, rather than just, we were living definitely paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
As a business for a long time. And I mean, I ended up losing a ton of weight, started smoking a lot more than I had in years.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was one of those things where I hadn't quite thought through how stressful that might be. But we sat down when we were looking to design the restaurant with another friend of ours, Monique Harvey,
Okay.
who
Yeah.
has her own design company currently, that's still operating in Moscow. And she helped us out a lot coming up with a concept, because we basically, oh, this is another totally bizarre thing. Before that even happened, we had somebody who was a fan of ours from Farmers Market
Hmm.
approached us one Saturday at the market and offered to help us do kind of a general architectural design for any
Okay.
potential restaurant we might want to do.
Wow.
So we took him up on that. That's John Paul, whose wife owns Nyack.
Okay. Gotcha.
And he helped us out immensely.
Yeah.
He did it for free. He,
Wow.
he helped Chris and I basically come up with this design for the actual space.
Yeah.
And then, he handed his plans over to an architect friend of his who gave us a really great cut price,
Yeah.
architectural plans. So, I mean, we can't thank John Paul enough.
Yeah. That's a sign that you're onto something.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. He just kind of randomly said that and gave us his information at Farmers Market one Saturday. So then when we were actually looking at, designing a restaurant,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, we have John Paul. He's here. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
So he helped us out, just kind of get everything moving
Mm-hmm.
with the design concept. And then Monique was the one who came in and, was just amazing to work with, just helped us out, kind of figure out, what the textures and colors and, just the overall aesthetic of the interior would look like, which was huge. Because I mean, none of us really had any sort of background in that. We all have very strong opinions about aesthetics.
Right.
Actually ever really had to do it in a professional setting.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah. So I mean, those two, John Paul and Monique Harvey, hugely helpful for just getting the restaurant actually off the ground from a design standpoint. And that was a, pretty quick turnaround on that stuff.
Yeah.
All considered, because we basically signed lease papers in March, and we knew that we wanted to try and, before cold weather really hit, we wanted to get the restaurant open.
Yeah.
So we hoped to open in August, around when students came back.
Right.
But it ended up running about a month behind.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so that's basically what we did that spring and summer, was just kind of figure out what the restaurant was going to look like. I started sourcing all the equipment and stuff.
Right.
There's that whole side of things as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so we just kind of got as much money together as the three of us could scrape.
Yeah.
Decided to do a Kickstarter, which was insane. Like, so many people that we knew, people we didn't know, jumped on board and helped us out. Because that's, equipment wise, the biggest cost is there's that giant hood that goes over, the griddle and the fryers and all that stuff out front. So the exhaust hood is, in and of itself, a $20,000 expense.
Wow. Man.
That's what we did. That's what we did the Kickstarter for specifically.
Okay.
And then when we actually got the hood itself, we just had a bunch of guys basically hoist it into place. Like, we just had a bunch of friends and people who were working on the building all came together and actually helped just physically lift the thing up.
Wow.
Fix it in place. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah. So when you, you mentioned how many seems like very sleepless nights, just being very busy. I know you mentioned that you left the journalism world because that's not the place for a young family and a newly married couple. So what were maybe some of the thoughts or the challenges running through your head when, as you opened up in HumbleBurger?
Oh, I mean, it was, just everything that you think is going to come along with opening a small business, probably times 3. Because, you're thinking to yourself, like, we're going to have to work really long hours, and we're going to have to just be there all the time. Basically have to deal with every possible problem.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge part of it, is just problem solving. That's anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, start a business. like you need to work on your problem solving skills because that
Right.
is
Right.
going to take a lot of your time.
Hmm.
So yeah, we started out, and it was Chris, Hannah, and I were both, well, all three of us were working at the restaurant a lot. I obviously, Chris kept his job at MZ.
Hmm.
I had just quit to do that full time. And then Hannah, was also mom to, at the time, 4 kids, one of whom, Finn, who, he's 7 now, but at the
Yeah.
time he was just a really little guy.
Yeah.
So, they had other things going on. So it fell
Oh,
to
yeah.
me to kind of just be at the restaurant all the time. And then we had just a couple employees to start out with.
Wow.
Originally it was 3 of them.
Okay.
So we had Seth, who's still there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Ethan, who was with us until last summer.
That's right. Okay.
And then our friend Isaac Leidenfrost, who,
Okay.
we'd known for a while through music stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he worked at Bootsers when I met him. So he ended up leaving Bootsers and came over to HumbleBurger in the early days.
Yeah.
We very quickly realized that was not enough staff. And I started to hire a few more people.
Okay.
We ended up hiring Karsten Shoemaker, who was like 15 at the time, I think.
Wow.
Still our janitor. And I hired him to be the janitor there. He still cleans and he does pretty much everything else now too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was, it was just kind of figuring out what those pieces were as we moved through different problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was very exhausting and very stressful, but also we, just kind of the same ideas with the farmers market booth. People were coming in and it was very encouraging because a lot of them were people we didn't actually know.
Right. Yeah.
One of the things, opening up a new business, I was just afraid that, we would end up tapping into this very small pool of people that knew us.
Right. Right.
Had seen us at farmers market and tried our burgers there. But basically, from day one, we ended up just getting people in who I didn't know, who were just kind of excited about having a burger place.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I think this is a good place to kind of plug in another question. For downtown Moscow, there's a very, very Northwestern feel to it. And it's can be a very hipster vibe down there. It's very, very alive. So when part of coming up and game planning for a business like HumbleBurger, what did you see as unique about the downtown district of Moscow, and what did you think HumbleBurger was bringing to the table?
I think downtown Moscow is a fantastic downtown community. I mean, we have really interesting stores, shops, restaurants, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's really amazingly walkable is the other thing that I think is really, really great about it. And also having just very cool things anchoring downtown, like the Co-op and the Kenworthy book people. Mikey's is one of those places that I feel like is legendary.
Yeah.
Outside of people who have lived in Moscow, but I think Mikey's is just amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just kind of one of those places that we were super excited to be a part of because we've been going downtown, enjoying stuff downtown for a super long time.
Yeah.
And everybody who was already, part of the business scene downtown was super welcoming to us when we first got going, which is very cool to see as well.
Yeah.
But the big thing for us, one of the reasons why we did burgers in the first place is because there wasn't a burger place in downtown Moscow.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Back in the day, there was a place called Ted's that I used to go to that had closed down like a few years before we started up. And it really, coming from California, it's like any downtown strip worth salt is going to have a burger place. So, that's really what we wanted to do was kind of just bring this very straightforward, really simple menu and focus on using high quality ingredients and prepare them in a way that we thought was going to enhance their quality.
Yeah.
And just kind of bring an old school hamburger feel to it, but do it in a way that's, I love places that are hole in the wall, you know, some crusty guy
Yes, same.
like smoking cigarettes and flipping burgers, but I know that's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to kind of walk that line between doing something like that and then doing something that's more modern and more family friendly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing about downtown Moscow is it's a great place for young families, people with kids. You know, everybody can kind of mingle and do basically, you know, any kind of shopping you want to do all within
Yeah.
4 or 5 block stretch, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's honestly, like it would be a shame if anyone were to drive through Moscow in the last 5 weeks, because it does such a disservice to what Moscow, I think, is really made of. And you miss such a big part of it if you come in town to visit family, and Moscow's downtown is dead like it is now. And so,
Hey, we're back.
oh,
Right,
they cut in and out.
Yeah, got hung up
Okay.
for a second.
Well, I mean, that's the first time that happened, so I'll take that as a sign that things are going good.
Nice.
So anyway, to just pick up on that, I think it would be a disservice if anyone came through Moscow during coronavirus when everything has been shut down. And I think that I did not want to spend the entire interview talking about coronavirus because everyone is talking about it. But I think part of the reason I wanted to do this interview is just the fact that I think that people need to hear from downtown businesses just on the state of things. So what has been HumbleBurger's biggest struggle or biggest challenge on this? And then what would be like one good thing that you think you could take out of this moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, probably the biggest struggle, and I mean, all of this stuff I don't think is anything specific to us. I think this is true basically any community anywhere right now.
Okay.
But at least for the first couple weeks, it was just kind of the uncertainty was the major problem, just because everybody kind of knew that things were coming down the line.
Yeah.
Nobody was sure what those were going to look like. So early on, back in March, you know, before even the dining ban had come into effect, I just kind of made it my job to start looking at the CDC guidelines and just try and base what we were doing off of those. And especially because I figured we're right next to Washington. I assumed that we were going to kind of follow what Washington was doing rather than what Idaho was doing for the most part. So at the time, it seemed like Idaho was taking a pretty casual approach to things. But being right next to Pullman, I was like, I don't think Moscow is going to be able to do that for very long.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've moved almost all of our seating out of the restaurant. We had seating for 10 people based off of that early CDC guideline inside the restaurant. And it was all spaced out. You know, we just started to kind of do things like sanitize everything that anybody might be touching, you know, every like couple minutes. You know, trying to stay on top of that stuff. But it really, the thing that was a killer for me every day was just kind of not knowing what we were going to be allowed to do, what the regulations were going to be. And that was true even when we got the regulations. Because city council passed the dine-in ban on a Friday, and they sent some couriers out to kind of take it to all the downtown businesses. So they brought it to me on a Friday afternoon, and I tried, of course, to call over to City Hall because I read through it, and some of the stuff was unclear. Some of it was pretty vague. And of course, everybody had gone home for the weekend.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a hold of anybody, which I thought was maybe not the most helpful thing to have done. I really wish, like, I understand they felt like they needed to take some action, but I really do wish that they had actually done it even a day earlier or do it on Monday when everybody would be able to actually ask their questions.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it took me a while to actually get a hold of anybody to ask my questions, and what I ended up doing, because I was looking at it and it was basically, you know, this is going to be a citable offense if you knowingly violate any of these things.
Yes.
So I called the police station because I just reasoned that if anybody was going to give out citations, it would be the police.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just called over there and asked them, what are you actually going to be enforcing?
Mm-hmm.
And they told me that the the guidelines were fairly vague, so they were kind of unsure about a lot of it.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I asked them, are we allowed to have anybody in the restaurant? Does everybody have to stay outside? Like, should we make a walk-up window? Can people sit at tables on the patio? All that stuff.
Right.
So we just kind of talked through that. They told me some stuff that ended up being incorrect.
Okay.
I ended up calling them back later to be like, I don't think that's actually
Yeah.
out. And it was just kind of figuring stuff out on the fly, which is fine, and is part of the deal. But it was just kind of the uncertainty, and especially at that moment, it felt like we were basically getting handed this whole thing with zero explanation, and it felt very last minute and very rushed.
Yeah.
Which I think it was, and I think that they rushed to do that for good reasons. Nobody's trying to do a bad job.
Yeah.
But there's just things end up happening in a way that's not really conducive to actually making things work for everybody when they're done in a hurry.
Yeah.
So for the first couple days of that, it was really just, should we shut down entirely? I'd had some conversations with other restaurant owners who were basically like, everybody who works in a restaurant automatically has to violate the social distancing requirements because we're all working in cramped environments,
right? Yeah.
Each other. So some people just closed down immediately because they just thought from a just wellness standpoint it made more sense to kind of shut it down, tell all their employees to stay at home, and kind of reopen whenever things looked clear again. I was one of the people who just figured, we've had to make weird things work in the past, so we'll just do that again and just try and make it work. And luckily for us, our business model pivots into doing what we've ended up being required to do pretty easily.
Yeah.
Burgers and fries are a grab and go kind of thing anyways. So, I felt so bad for so many of our buddies at restaurants downtown because they're basically being asked to rewrite their menu, come up with a new business plan entirely from what they normally do. And for us, that just wasn't the case because, we're normally a place where, drivers come and pick up DoorDash. Anyways. Come in to go food all the time. So it was a really mixed bag with that stuff early on. But I would definitely say that as a business owner, just the uncertainty, especially of what we were allowed to do and not allowed to do, and what was best for the public health, all of that stuff was what made me lose sleep early on.
Yeah.
And, as a business owner too, I feel a responsibility to, keep my employees paid and, even not even from just an economic standpoint, keep people employed, but I also feel like a mental health component exists as well, where it's good for people to actually, have the stuff that they're supposed to be doing still available for them to do.
Yeah.
So for us, that was part of the reason why we decided to stay open and just kind of adapt.
Yeah.
Partially just trying to let everybody, feel some assurance, both employees and our customers as well. And it was amazing in the first couple of weeks how many people came in and bought food and thanked us for, still being open.
Wow.
It was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel like I don't. The second part of your question, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go for it.
What was the second part of the question?
The second part. What is there any good that you think can come of this, and what do you think that might be moving forward? Like,
I mean, for us and a lot of places I have talked to, I feel like we have kind of gained some self-confidence through this. Just by being forced to adapt and kind of take on, new responsibilities to a certain
Yeah.
extent, doing call-in orders and online orders and all that stuff. So it has sort of forced us to do new things. And also, one of the other things, this is something that's going to be kind of, I think, a rant a little bit.
Oh, go for it.
But one of the things I think has gotten kind of missed in all of this is just the early stuff about, stay at home and like slow down and take it easy, and this is time to kind of reconnect and recenter yourself. Really missed the mark, I think, for a lot of small businesses, because a lot of us don't have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I would love to like hang out at home and read more books and like
Right.
do more like idle leisure kind of things, which is kind of the way everybody started talking about it early on. But really, for those first couple of weeks, most small business owners I knew were working harder than they normally have to. And in some cases, a lot harder than they normally have to basically make a fraction of the money that they were.
Yeah.
So, people were like killing themselves to make 10% of their
Yes.
sales.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like that's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. So, I mean, it was great that a lot of people got to work from home and slow things down and not have to run around all over the place. But I also know that there are a lot of folks, specifically, in the service and restaurant industry, where it was just, and retail too, where it was, they're just staying up super late, trying to figure stuff out, working long hours, trying to make it happen so that they can actually keep their employees on staff, like all that stuff.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, there just weren't that many people out and about buying stuff because they were told to stay at home. So, I mean, I think there is some good that comes out of that, though, that kind of shows you how resilient your business can be.
Right.
I've been really pleasantly surprised with how few businesses I know of are in trouble in a serious way. It seems like everybody's kind of figured out how to make it work for the most part, which is really, I think, an incredible testament to everybody's ability to just kind of cope and figure out a way to make it through.
Yeah. So, no, that's an awesome answer. And it's been increasingly evident, at least to me, just listening and doing research, and that I think that initially, the stay-at-home order, that's fine, good. And I think that, like you mentioned, it's well-intentioned, but there's it's starting to put a chokehold on the economy and just on the smaller businesses, because I think that there is a timer if you continue to let it run out till, some people are talking about bringing sports back, in 2021. And if they're going to try to put any kind of pressure like that on small businesses, they're asking too much, I think, at that point.
I am curious with a lot of that stuff. We're obviously, it's fairly early days kind of moving into that phase of it, but just coming up with actual concrete benchmarks that are going to mean that we start to relax certain restrictions,
right?
And what people in authority are actually looking for. I'm still not entirely sure. Just from the state of Idaho's standpoint, our governor said he wanted to see a couple weeks of decline in new cases, etc. Right. But when he said that, we were already in the middle of a downward trend. So I don't know how much more of that he's actually looking for. I also, like I'm sure a lot of other people, I am not really checked in on that the same way that I was weeks ago. That's another weird thing about being a downtown business, is I've just gotten to watch over the last couple of weeks more and more people just kind of realize we've been doing this for a month. We're going to kind of get back to normal life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 3 weeks ago, downtown Moscow was a total ghost town. But the last 2 weeks, especially now that the weather is turning nice,
right,
it's kind of back to being like, it's not hard to find a parking spot, but at least there are people downtown and you can notice it because cars parked, people are walking around. doing their thing. So I am curious how much longer everybody's actually going to follow the restrictions. That would be
Yeah.
my worry at this point if I was in charge, is how do you convince people to still follow guidelines?
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like I mean, if Governor Brad Little is talking about how he wants to see a decline, well, as soon as everyone comes back and we get more testing, the numbers are going to go up just naturally because people are going to be around each other. And I think there is something to herd immunity. I've been hearing more about that. And there's recently a Stanford study that came out. And I think basically said that all of these statistics the CDC has been using are bunk. Like this, like I've been hearing that coronavirus was probably here, months before we actually thought it was here. And then at that point, we actually probably do have the antibodies in our system to combat the virus.
That's great. My parents live in the Bay Area. They're right next to Stanford. My dad told me that they just realized that they had, it's either 1 or 2 coronavirus deaths, but I mean, they were like a month before they thought the first thing that happened there. So yeah, who knows at this point? It seems seems to me that one of the lessons to be learned from this whole thing is that our science and medicine that we really believe in, and for many, many good reasons, are actually fairly fallible.
Yes.
Things are moving quickly.
Yes.
Just like I've heard so many different expert opinions that say totally different things.
Yeah.
And also, you can hear one person say something one week and then they change what they're saying the next week.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I did hear this theory, and I'll share it before we move on. But do you follow the NFL at all?
A little bit.
Okay, so the 49ers, they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And as a Chiefs fan, that was the first time we've been there in 50 years, all this. And
it made my family so sad. They're all Niners fans.
Okay, the 49ers have won like 5 or 6 times. So the Chiefs need one break. But I heard that there's this doctor that came out in San Francisco and mentioned how the Chiefs might have saved the world because they actually won. And so the big parade that happens the weekend after the Super Bowl happened in Kansas City. And like the night that the 49ers would have been celebrating their win of the Super Bowl, 2 coronavirus patients were taken to the hospital and they were diagnosed with the coronavirus. So he mentioned like if we hadn't really done any shutdown, anything like that, but this would have been middle of February, so the virus was definitely over here, and San Francisco has been kind of a hotbed for it. So they've talked about if there's like 1 million to 2 million people congregating for a Super Bowl parade, it might have been very, very dramatic. But thanks to the Chiefs, we might have saved everyone in San Francisco because we beat the 49ers. But
He's Superman, saving the world.
Yeah, he is Superman. That's what Chiefs fans like to believe. Anyway, actually, you mentioned something about a while back about how a lot of downtown businesses really wanted to keep their employees working, and you mentioned for the mental health, but also for that livable wage. That's something that Ruth and I have greatly appreciated. And I know a lot of my friends who have worked at one time or another, HB, George especially, they've really benefited from the kind of hourly wage that you pay there. And it's almost double what other people are paying someone in town. So why did you want to pay your employees so well? Which I'm not complaining because I definitely appreciate it. And then how do you make that work compared to other people who only pay for their employees bare minimum?
For the hourly wage, that was just a decision that we made when we were actually coming up with a business plan for the restaurant. So that's something that we just kind of baked into what we were going to do from the beginning. And it's a lot easier, I think, to do things that way because then you have to make the numbers work from the get-go rather than come to a decision later on and then try and figure it out. So for us, it was just sort of, we wanted to do this mainly from, we're a bunch of weirdos. Like we have a bunch of weird philosophical and theological ideas about things. And you know, I have a background of, you know, being really into punk rock music.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite bands is a Washington D.C. band called Fugazi.
Okay.
Who, a couple guys who were instrumental in the hardcore punk scene back in the 80s and ended up forming this other band, Fugazi. They were actually really influential and very famous in musical circles, but most people haven't heard of Fugazi. They're not a household name.
Right.
They're not really like rock stars. But one of the things that they wanted to do was set ticket prices at a certain level and just kind of, you know, keep almost artificially low ticket prices. So who wanted to come see the shows could come see them. Like, you know, just make it so the kids could actually afford a ticket rather than, you know, end up going to an arena and having people pay like hundreds of dollars. Whatever.
Yeah.
And that was just something that they decided to do from a philosophical standpoint. So when we were starting to talk about forming a company and having employees, I was like, I don't feel like I ever need to make a huge amount of money off of whatever we're doing.
Right.
And, you know, I know a lot of people who get into business because they want to make money. Mm-hmm. That's great. But from our standpoint, we wanted to start a business because we thought it would be a fun thing to do. And that's one of the things that's kind of kept us going is just making things set up in a way where we don't feel bad about just kind of doing fun things that lose us money.
Right.
So just kind of holding those things loosely, like holding profit margins loosely, all that stuff has been very healthy for us.
Yeah.
And allowed us to do things like pay our employees $12 an hour as a starting wage, just because, you know, at the end of the day, we are just kind of like, you know, we don't have any investors. We're not beholden to anybody.
Right.
We don't have bank money that we're paying back. Like we haven't gotten loans from anybody.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can afford to pay people a little bit better just because we're not too concerned about making a huge amount of money. That's not why we got into it in the first place. So we're not taking a vow of poverty or anything like that.
Right.
But there is just kind of that attitude of, you know, we want to do as good a job with HumbleBurger as we possibly can. And that extends to all areas. So that extends to the way we treat our employees, the food we serve, the way that we participate in downtown Moscow,
right?
All that stuff. It really is nice that we had at the beginning, Chris, Hannah, and I were just three weirdos with weird but similar ideas about that stuff. So when we first were talking about it, all three of us were like, yeah, that makes sense. Like we should just try and pay people as best we can from the beginning. And that's still something we're working on. One of the things that I'm trying to do with HumbleBurger, which unfortunately, because of what's going on currently, has been delayed, is I'm actually looking into doing an employee ownership scheme.
Okay.
So we're going to hopefully end up changing the structure of the company at some point.
Okay.
And we want to actually give our employees ownership as, you know, a reward for the work that they do.
Right.
It's one of those things that's a little tricky to figure out, but I do think that it's a very healthy thing to have everybody invested in kind of the same way, working on a project like a restaurant or any other business. So that's something else we're looking at doing as well. Because again,
so what does that all entail? Like if you have all your employees involved in the ownership of the place they work for, what does that mean?
So one of the businesses I actually have been impressed by for a long time is Winco. Winco actually distributes ownership to its employees. It's an employee-owned company. NRS, which is in town, same employee-owned company. And that basically just means that you're bestowing, you know, certain percentages on employees. For us, it's probably just going to be a time-based thing, like base it on experience and how long you've been in the company. And then, you know, as the company profits, the owners get to take a cut of those profits, you know, if you're not using that money to pay down debt or buy new equipment or anything like that. So that's what we're hoping to do with it, is, you know, use it to actually get more money out of the business and into the hands of employees and actual people. So that's, that's something that we're planning to do. Yeah. And it's something we've been talking about, but this is the year that I was like, at the beginning of the year, you know, we're going to make it happen.
Right.
But now there isn't really any money to do anything with anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. That rolls well into the next question, is just how do you think other businesses are going to bounce back? Because you mentioned like there are 2 waves in the year, and that's like when the students are leaving, graduating in May, and then when they come back in August and early fall. So is that concern? I mean, it's kind of took away 5 or 6 weeks of really good income.
I mean, it didn't hurt us this time around in a catastrophic way.
Yeah.
We actually, I don't know if Ruth told you this, but we got our EIDL grant.
Oh, okay. She did mention that. Yeah.
Which was a thing that the SBA did as kind of a front runner to the Paycheck Protection Program that everybody's been talking about.
Right.
Total catastrophe.
Yeah.
So we applied for that a month ago.
Okay.
That was supposed to be a really quick turnaround thing, because, you know, they basically were like, apply and we'll send you $10,000 to just kind of help out in the immediate short term. And then it took them a month to get it to us. But, you know, hey, we ended up getting some money, which has kind of helped out, at least, you know, for a business as small as ours.
Yeah.
We have 15 employees, and, you know, we're not making millions of dollars every year.
Right.
Like $10,000 cash infusion is actually kind of a big deal for us. So that's bumped us back up to where we were when all of this started.
Okay. Wow.
We had just been kind of like whittling down the bank account for the last 2 months. And, you know, the unfortunate thing for a lot of businesses in Moscow is when this hit basically at the end of the slow season.
Right.
So everybody's bank account is basically as depleted as it possibly could be. And this is the time when everybody starts adding money back into their bank account.
Right.
That's going to help them out at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's the way we approach it, is, you know, we make money that we get to hang on to until we have to use it again in December, January, and February.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, this all hit at the end of February, early March.
Right.
Which is basically when you've used up all those cash reserves anyways.
Yeah.
So for us, getting that EIDL grant is really nice, because it basically just sets the clock back to, you know, where we were at the end of February. And now things have actually picked up downtown Moscow. So we've started hitting more, you know, it's not normal, obviously, because it's still, there's weird stuff, but it feels more like a springtime level of sales.
Okay.
So we're no longer like losing a little bit of money every week. We're not making a little bit of money every week. And that's just like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Seeing that shift. So, you know, like I was saying, downtown Moscow has started to come back to life a little bit.
Yeah.
That springtime rejuvenation.
People coming back out from under the rocks. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some concern. I'm trying to tell as many people as possible, the time to be concerned about small businesses in Moscow isn't really right now. Like I said, everybody seems to have figured out ways to just kind of muddle through what's happening.
Yeah, stay afloat.
Yeah, we're all able to just kind of stay alive. The problem is going to be if at the end of the year, if we don't have another major spike in sales in August and September. Like, for instance, if the virus makes a comeback, you know, schools aren't allowed to meet in person, all that stuff. Students don't come back, then we're going to start seeing some businesses fail and some actual problems, I think, at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I'm not super concerned about it, because I do feel like we've kind of made it through the worst part of it.
Right.
mainly because it was just so unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is unprecedented.
Yes. Yes.
Like I've lived through a few of these health scares, and
Mm-hmm.
we had the economic recession hit when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is totally different than any of that stuff.
Hmm.
But you know, now like everybody's still sounding like they're really worried about what's going to happen if the virus comes back.
Yeah.
But to me, it's less of a concern because at least now we've seen
Mm-hmm.
how everybody reacts.
Yeah.
And we've seen what the decisions are that folks in authority have made. And we've managed so far
Mm-hmm.
to survive all that. So I feel like there are way less unknowns if this comes back again in the fall.
Yeah.
The only real problem again is going to be, you know, the decisions that are made, what happens to the economy in Moscow and elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and just how, you know, that impacts what everybody's able to do sales wise in the fall. So that's the thing that I'm most curious about at this point.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I mean, everybody's kind of pushed everything back into September anyways.
Yeah.
So September might be just crazy busy. It might be enough to make up the difference in a lot of ways, because, you know, you've got graduation ceremonies are going to happen in September.
Right. Yeah.
You know, students hopefully will be back. There's probably going to be a lot of events that got moved from the spring into the fall happening.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? I mean, it might end up just kind of evening itself out. And, you know, maybe we all take a, you know, minor percentage hit on sales over the course of the year. But, you know, there's also all this government money floating around. So hopefully the people that really need it actually end up getting it.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I don't want to keep you much longer because I think we have to get to doing stuff here. But as the last question, just for kicks, if you were in a position of authority, say Moscow City Council, and this struck, coronavirus happens, and you could have had some say in the decision, how would you have wanted to react, and what would you have implemented?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very tough hypothetical, because, you know, even for us idealists and dreamers, like there's still the reality of the situation.
Right. Yeah.
And even though I think a lot of us would assume like, yeah, I would react in a more sane way and take my time. Like who actually knows? Because I didn't have to make those decisions.
Right.
For me, I think the big one is just communication. I feel like, and this isn't just a criticism of local government.
Right.
I mean, this is a criticism across the board, because I feel like one of the biggest elements of this that nobody has really drilled down into has just been how bad the communication has been about all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really been like, if I was an English and communications major, and I'm just thinking about one of my professors would have lost her mind.
Yeah.
Just about, you know, things people have said, stuff that they've just kind of like left out that's screaming to be answered, all that. I just wish that City Council and the city of Moscow had done a better job of communicating. And, you know, a few specifics would be on the dine-in ban. I wish that there had been more communication about that. I ended up calling the city supervisor at one point, and I told him that he needed to put things out in more of a bullet point fashion.
Right.
Tell people what they meant or didn't mean. I told him I had other business owners calling me up and asking me what the rules were.
Right.
And I was like, the only reason I have any idea is because I talked to you about it. But you don't want me to be your spokesperson on this.
Right.
You should try and communicate with everybody else. Because, I mean, even now there are businesses downtown who still are unsure about whether they should let people into the building or not. You know, stuff like that. And we've been doing this for 6 weeks at this point. So, yeah, I mean, just other communication stuff. For a city like Moscow, where everybody is all about community and togetherness, I haven't had anybody from the city reach out to me and even check in to see how I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think fairly odd.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we all got printed out things of rules, but so far I haven't gotten a phone call from anybody at City
Mm.
Hall or on the City Council asking
Yeah.
me how things are going, what can we do to help out. Um, I wish that there had been more of an effort for folks in city government to communicate and figure out what business people's issues were.
Mm.
Because the other thing with that, along with the communication, the whole SBA loan thing has been a total nightmare, mainly
Mm.
because of the communications thing.
Yeah.
People weren't sure how to apply. A lot of people ended up waiting in line because they were told they couldn't apply yet. And then by the time they realized they could apply, the money was gone, all that kind of
Interesting.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I wish that we had local leaders who had actually taken point on that
Mm.
and not relied so much on federal assistance.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there were a lot of things that we could have done on a local level that would have been really helpful
Mm-hmm.
and a lot more timely than waiting for, folks in Washington, D.C. or at the
Right.
SBA to handle them.
Yeah.
And I understand everybody's, overwhelmed. There's tons of stuff going on.
Yeah.
I feel super, super bad for everybody involved with farmers market,
Yeah.
because that's a total nightmare. Where, they're talking about hosting an event with thousands of people at it, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously any government authority right now is going to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
trying to figure out their stuff. And those are really the only people that I've talked to at the city, mainly because they have to talk to everybody right now to
Mm-hmm.
kind of figure it out. Because farmers market is supposed to start in a week and a half.
Right. Right.
But they pushed it back into June. There was a lot of back and forth. I ended up asking a ton of questions and talked to Amanda, who's the farmers market manager,
Mm.
a couple times, and just kind of figured stuff out on the fly.
Yeah.
But I wish there were more people at the city who had kind of been forced into having to deal with everybody in that way, because I do think that that's a much healthier way to solve problems than
Yeah.
hope for assistance from the federal government and
Mm-hmm.
Small Business Alliance, all that
Yeah.
stuff. So I don't know. For me, that's the big one, is just communication, and especially on the local level, just kind of making sure that everybody has all the information they need, and also, maybe figure out a way to help people in a real way on the local
Yeah.
level rather than
Yeah.
rely on federal dollars.
Hmm.
So, yeah, in my administration, that's how we would approach
Well,
things.
I'd be on board for that. I would definitely. I mean, I feel like it's better to err on the side of over communicating on something
Yeah.
as tense as this and as tenuous as this. It's
Yeah.
just so many unknowns, so many variables. So yeah, no, I definitely amen to all of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just some of the decisions I thought were very weird, like
Mhm.
closing down the recycling center.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't get that
I mean, there
either.
are things like that happen that if somebody had actually offered up a rationale for it,
Hmm.
and there had been a discussion about it, I think I haven't talked to anybody who thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and obviously they didn't think it was that great of an idea either, because they reversed the decision, within a week.
Right.
So it's back open, and you can recycle your stuff again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff like that, where it's, even if you're making a decision that I don't agree with, if we can talk about it and I understand what the reasoning is behind it, I can get on board with it.
Yeah.
But, I also understand, it's really easy for me to sit over here and be like, yeah, if only they had talked to me about more stuff.
Right. Right.
But in the meantime, they're having to deal with everything from,
Mhm.
Local hospitals and businesses and whatever projects they already had going on. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
a crazy time to be in government.
Yeah. Crazy time for everyone.
Yeah.
So, well, Nate, thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed and plagued for an hour and a half, basically. This was very enjoyable. I really was looking forward to it, because Ruth did mention that you had that in all of the conversations that happened at HumbleBurger. It's really actually there's just a lot of stuff to be gleaned. So I'm glad I was able to partake of that just a little bit.
Yeah, well, I love being able to actually talk about stuff with
Mm.
people I'm not related to.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, same
Getting to
here.
talk to everybody at HumbleBurger about all this stuff, I think is very healthy, at least for me.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
how it is for everybody else to be forced to, interact with. Yeah,
Yeah.
work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you once again so much. And I will tell everyone to go buy HumbleBurger, because I mean, I already do that, but I'll just make a more effort to do that.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And I'll send you the link when it's up. Hopefully it'll be up and done on Saturday. Depends. There's a lot to get done between now and then, but this is a good start.
Sure. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.